You ever play a game so much as a kid and still never beat it? Yeah, we've all been there. You loved it, you swore you'd finish it one day, and then boom, real life hit. Or the game just got way too hard. Today, we're diving into the PS2 vault to uncover 10 games you probably never finished, or maybe never even played, but totally should've. And if you did beat these, you're a damn legend. Let's see how many you remember, and how many are still sitting in your memory card, unfinished to this day. Before we start the video, a quick question. Has this ever happened to you? You love the game, the story's great, the world is awesome, but then the grind kicks in. Hours and hours just to level up, or that one boss you just can't beat, and eventually, you give up. Even though deep down you really want to see what comes next. So yeah, Xmod is the solution if you're tired of wasting hours just to enjoy your game. It's a platform that supports over 5,000 single-player games, and with it, you can apply mods and cheats with just one click. Want to skip the grind? Get unlimited gold? Health, mana, stamina, weapons, whatever it is, Xmod probably has it. And the best part? You don't need to know anything about modding. Just launch the game, click the mod you want, and that's it. Instant power-up. Everything's in one place. Trainers, cheats, cosmetic mods, visual upgrades, all neatly organized by game and just one click away. You don't have to worry about viruses or getting banned either. It's 100% safe to use with your Steam account and other platforms, as long as you stick to single-player games. And it's even easier to install it. Click the link in the description or in the pinned comment and download Xmod for free. Then launch your game and activate the mod you want. And boom, in 2 clicks, you're playing the way you want to play. Seriously, just by clicking the download button and saving the file through my link, you're already helping the channel a lot, as we get a small commission for every download. So, make sure to download it at least once and help us keep creating more videos for you. Ben 10, Protector of Earth dropped right when Ben 10 fever was at its peak. If you were a kid back then, you either had the toys, watched every episode religiously, or played this game like your life depended on it. Released for PlayStation 2 in 2007, it was one of those rare licensed games that actually delivered. You played as Ben himself, cruising through different parts of the United States, chasing down pieces of the Omnitrix stolen by Vilgax. Yeah, that guy. The one every kid wanted to punch in the face. The gameplay was straightforward but super satisfying. You had puzzles, a bunch of enemies to smack around, and of course the Omnitrix. That's where the magic really happened. You could transform into classic aliens like Forearms, Heat Blast, XLR8, and Cannonbolt. Each one had their own moves and time-limited power, but the more you played and progressed, the more transformations you unlocked. And every new alien felt like unlocking a cheat code from your childhood dreams. What really made Ben 10 Protector of Earth stand out, though, was how it handled the upgrade system tied to the Omnitrix. As you progressed through the game, defeating enemies and collecting green energy orbs, you could actually level up your alien forms. That meant stronger attacks, new combo chains, and even passive boosts like increased damage or longer transformation time. It added a light RPG layer to what could have been a basic beat-em-up, rewarding players who explored levels thoroughly and experimented with each alien's abilities. The combat wasn't the deepest, but it didn't need to be. It nailed that Saturday morning cartoon energy, and for fans of the show, it was pure wish fulfillment. If you ever imagined having that watch on your wrist as a kid, this was the closest you could get.
Ooh, yeah! Ooh, yeah!
If you grew up watching MTV during its wildest years, there's no way Jackass didn't leave a mark on you. Those insane stunts, the reckless dares, the pure chaos, yeah, they turned that madness into a game. Jackass the game dropped for PS2 back in 2007, and it brought the full cast with it. We're talking Johnny Knoxville, Steve-O, Bam Margera. Every lunatic you remember from the show is here, ready to break bones for your entertainment. And this ain't some cheap cash-in. The game is packed with mini-games that feel ripped straight from the show, like shopping cart crashes, porta-potty launches, and full-on disaster missions where the goal is pure destruction. It leans hard into the absurdity, and somehow it gets even more extreme than the actual show. No storyline, no saving the world, just raw, hilarious chaos. But here's something a lot of people forget. Jackass the game had a surprisingly clever physics engine working behind all that madness. Every time you launched a character into traffic or face first into a porta potty, it wasn't just for laughs. The game actually tracked how much damage each body part took, how far your character flew, and even how many bones were broken in the process. That's what gave it that chaotic but addictive arcade feel. You weren't just mashing buttons, you were learning how to angle the perfect launch, how to bounce off objects just right to rack up more points, and how to chain disasters together for bonus multipliers. It was slapstick science. The more you played, the better you got at causing mayhem with surgical precision. And let's be honest, turning pain into a high score never stopped being funny. If you actually finished every challenge in this game, congrats. You've got more patience and maybe more brain damage than most. Fahrenheit, also known as Indigo Prophecy, was one of those rare PS2 titles that felt way ahead of its time. It wasn't just another action-adventure game. It threw you into a supernatural thriller with multiple playable characters, branching paths, and decisions that actually mattered. You start off as Lucas Kane, an average guy in New York who suddenly finds himself committing a murder in a trance. No idea why he did it or how it happened. From there, everything spirals. You're not just controlling Lucas, you also play as two detectives trying to catch him, which means you're basically chasing yourself in real time. It's wild. But what makes the game hit hard even today is how it treats its story like a movie. Every camera angle, every line of dialogue, every twist, it's all crafted like you're inside a psychological thriller. And yeah, some parts get weird, especially near the end, but it never stops being engaging. This was one of the first games that really made choices feel weighty. Say the wrong thing in a conversation or fail a quick-time event, and the story shifts in a completely different direction. It's like a playable movie, but you're writing the script as you go. And considering it was made by the same folks behind Heavy Rain and Beyond Two Souls, you know they weren't messing around. Another really cool system that often gets overlooked is the game's mental health mechanic. Every major character has a mental stability meter, and it's constantly shifting based on your actions. Do something good, like comfort a friend, solve a puzzle, or avoid conflict, and your meter goes up. But if you mess up, act aggressively, or experience something traumatic, it drops. And if a character's mental state gets too low, they can spiral into depression or even have a breakdown, which can cut off entire branches of the story. Even if you've never heard of this one, it's the kind of game you don't forget once you've played it. Heavy themes, dark atmosphere, and that early 2000s vibe that just hits different. Van Helsing is one of those PS2 games that hit different if you grew up loving dark action, gothic vibes, and just pure chaos on screen. Based on the movie with Hugh Jackman, yeah, the same guy who gave us Wolverine, this game drops you right into a twisted world filled with vampires, werewolves, and cursed creatures that don't go down easy. It's fast, gritty, and brutal in all the right ways. The combat's where it shines. It mixes gunplay with sword slashing in a way that feels straight up satisfying, especially when you're surrounded and just mowing through enemies like some cursed Avenger. It's got that same energy you'd find in God of War or Devil May Cry, but with its own gritty style. You're not some god or half-demon here. You're a monster hunter with a mission and an arsenal built for destruction. And as you take down monsters and collect orbs, you can level up your weapons and unlock new moves, making your attacks hit harder and look way cooler. Each weapon feels different when upgraded. Your Tojo blades get faster, your crossbow becomes a beast, and your shotgun? Absolute crowd control. And it's not just hack and slash for the sake of it. The levels are packed with hidden paths, boss fights that demand timing, and a soundtrack that amps up the tension just enough to keep you on edge. The visuals, for the time, were wild. The lighting, the atmosphere, the character models, They all pull you into this cursed world that feels alive in the creepiest way. If this one slipped under your radar, do yourself a favor. It's a forgotten gem from that golden era when PS2 games didn't hold back on the dark and dramatic.
Roger that, Alpha 2-1. What's your status? Over.
Conflict Desert Storm dropped back in 2002. And let's be honest, most people either never heard of it or forgot it even existed. But this game went all in on tactical squad combat, set during the Gulf War. You're not some lone wolf charging and guns blazing. You lead a 4-man team, and each soldier has their own specialty like sniper, demolitions, heavy weapons, and assault. It's that old-school, boots-on-the-ground kind of gameplay where every move matters. Another cool thing about Conflict Desert Storm is how it handled squad commands without needing a ton of menus or pausing the action. You could issue quick orders on the fly, like telling your sniper to hold position while you flank with your assault guy, or ordering your demolitions expert to take out a tank before it spots the team. The game used a simple command wheel that let you switch strategies mid-mission without breaking the flow. It wasn't perfect, but for a PS2-era title, it made you feel in control of your squad without overwhelming you with options. Plus, each soldier had their own voice lines and responses, which added a surprising amount of personality. Over time, you'd start recognizing their quirks and playstyles, turning this group of generic soldiers into a tight-knit team you actually cared about keeping alive. Set during Operation Desert Storm in Iraq, the game throws you into real historical missions with sandy battlefields, missile strikes, and that constant feeling of being outnumbered. It's gritty, it's strategic, and yeah, it's tough. You're coordinating airstrikes, sneaking past enemy lines, planting charges, everything you'd expect from a military sim trying to stay grounded in realism. Now, it's not the smoothest ride gameplay-wise. Compared to games like SOCOM, which nailed the tactical shooter vibe on PS2, Desert Storm feels a bit clunky, but it's got its charm. The atmosphere, the setting, the way the missions feel like actual operations, it all works if you're into that old-school wargame style. It's one of those titles that flew under the radar, but if you're the kind of player who likes leading a squad instead of just racking up kill streaks, it's worth checking out.
Taking fire! Fire in the hole! Good to see you, mate.
Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End was one of those games that flew under the radar, but somehow ended up in a lot of PS2 collections. Released in 2007, it followed the events of the third movie in the franchise. But let's be real, most people either hadn't seen the film or didn't remember much of it. That actually made the game feel kind of fresh, even if the story didn't make total sense. You play as Jack Sparrow, and the game does a solid job of letting you swing swords, brawl with enemies, and pull off that classic Jack-style chaos. The combat is basic, nothing fancy, but it's got that arcade feel that makes it easy to jump into and just have fun. And it's not trying to reinvent anything, it's just there to let you be a pirate and mess stuff up. What helped the game stand out, though, were the visuals. For a PS2 title, the graphics were clean, and the facial animations actually looked pretty close to Johnny Depp's real expressions. That little touch gave the game some unexpected personality. During certain moments in the story, the game shifts into one-on-one sword fights that feel way more cinematic than the usual brawls. These duels come with their own pacing, camera angles, and even quick-time events that force you to time your strikes and blocks with just the right rhythm. It's not super complex, but it does break the repetition in a fun way and gives you that swashbuckling movie vibe. Plus, the animations during these sequences are way smoother than you'd expect from a mid-2000s tie-in game, which makes them surprisingly satisfying to pull off. It's not a masterpiece, but it's the kind of game you'd throw on during a lazy weekend, maybe when your internet was down, and still have a good time. Simple, nostalgic, and kind of underrated.
Hope you enjoyed that, mate.
Soon I cut you into food.
Welcome to Amity Island.
Jaws Unleashed is one of those wild PS2 titles that made zero sense, and that's exactly why it was awesome. You play as a massive great white shark. No plot, no talking, no cutscenes trying to be deep, just pure chaos. Swim around the ocean, wreck boats, munch on tourists, and leave a trail of destruction like it's your full-time job. The whole thing is loosely inspired by the classic 70s movie, but don't expect any meaningful story beats or dramatic music buildups. This is straight-up arcade mayhem. The open world is underwater, which already makes it stand out. But the real charm is how brutally entertaining it is. You're the villain, and the game wants you to be. Sink ships, chomp divers in half, jump out of the water like a missile. It's so dumb, it loops back around to genius. Another cool detail a lot of people forget about Jaws Unleashed is the upgrade system. Yeah, believe it or not, your shark gets stronger over time. As you rack up destruction and rack up points, by doing things like tossing beachgoers into the air or turning speedboats into scrap, you unlock new abilities and boost your stats. You can upgrade things like bite strength, speed, and health, which actually lets you go even more nuts as the game goes on. It turns the already ridiculous gameplay into a kind of twisted power fantasy. There's something so satisfying about starting off as a regular old shark and slowly becoming this unstoppable underwater beast that can take down giant boats and fight off waves of enemies without breaking a sweat. If you ever wanted a break from serious games and just needed to turn your brain off and go full shark mode, this was the game. And honestly, still a better open-world experience than half the stuff out there now. Evil Dead Regeneration is one of those games that flew under the radar for a lot of people, but if you were lucky enough to play it, you know just how wild it gets. You play as Ash Williams, stuck in a mental hospital, when a mysterious book unleashes the undead and all hell breaks loose. Ash ends up battling monsters, cracking one-liners, and using his iconic chainsaw hand to rip through hordes of deadites. It's brutal, bloody, and full of that over-the-top charm fans love. The game doesn't take itself too seriously, which is exactly what makes it so fun. It captures the spirit of the Sam Raimi films perfectly, with Bruce Campbell himself lending his voice once again. And yeah, if you remember him more from those old Spider-Man movies, that's him too. One of the most overlooked but genuinely entertaining parts of Evil Dead Regeneration is the way it integrates your sidekick, Sam, into the gameplay. You can literally pick him up, light him on fire, and toss him like a grenade at enemies or obstacles. He respawns almost instantly, so the game just leans into that absurdity, turning him into a reusable screaming projectile. The devs clearly had fun designing these moments, and it gives the game a unique rhythm, bouncing between straight-up combat and these weird, hilarious setups involving poor Sam. What's cool about this one is how tight the gameplay feels. It's a hack and slash that doesn't overcomplicate things. Just pick it up and start wrecking enemies with a shotgun in one hand and a chainsaw in the other. It's pure, chaotic fun from start to finish, and somehow it still holds up surprisingly well today.
Oh yeah!
If you ever missed out on Indiana Jones and the Staff of Kings back on the PlayStation 2, man, you missed a wild ride. This game dropped in 2009 and threw you straight into the shoes of Indy himself, chasing down the legendary Staff of Moses across places like Sudan, Panama, San Francisco, and even the snowy peaks of Nepal. It felt like living through one of those classic action flicks with just the right mix of danger, ancient mysteries, and over-the-top brawls. The puzzles weren't just filler either. You actually had to think, move stuff around, and piece things together like a real archaeologist dodging traps. And the hand-to-hand combat? Super satisfying. Another great feature was the way Staff of Kings handled environmental destruction and object interaction during fights. You could slam enemies into walls, knock over shelves, break tables during a scuffle, or even trigger accidental chain reactions that turned the tide of a fight. It gave every fight a bit of chaos and creativity, like you were improvising your way out of trouble, just like Indy would in the movies. Also, the lighting effects were surprisingly good for the time, with environments that actually made you feel like you were on a globe-trotting adventure. If you liked Tomb Raider, there's no doubt this one would have hit the same sweet spot. It had that same energy with treasures, ruins, danger, and that old-school charm that just works.
Known as the People's Revolutionary Army of San Espirito, has been fighting the rule of the nation's...
And at the very top of the list, we've got a game that looked like freedom but played like a chore. Just Cause was hyped as the PS2's answer to GTA. A massive open world, tropical islands, explosions everywhere, and a secret agent protagonist who could skydive into chaos like it was just another Tuesday. The world was huge, way bigger than San Andreas, but here's the thing. Bigger doesn't always mean better. The map was beautiful, sure. Dense jungles, mountains, beaches. It looked like a vacation spot made for blowing stuff up. And visually, for a PlayStation 2 game, it really pushed the hardware. But once the novelty wore off, you started to feel it. Missions that dragged, repetitive objectives, a world that looked alive but felt kind of empty. It gave you tools for chaos, but didn't give you enough reasons to care. I get why people were drawn in. Parachutes, grappling hooks, explosions, it sounds amazing. And for the first couple hours it is. But trying to actually beat the game? It turns into a slog. It's like the devs built a playground, handed you all the toys and forgot to add the fun. One thing that really stood out in Just Cause, for better or worse, was its insane verticality and how the game let you chain stunts in midair. You could jump out of a moving car, deploy your parachute, free fall toward an enemy vehicle, hijack it in the air, and keep going like nothing happened. That kind of fluid movement was way ahead of its time. It gave the player a sense of mobility that was almost superhero-like, especially considering it was on the PS2. The problem is, the game didn't really use that potential in creative ways. Most missions barely required those mechanics, and the AI was too dumb to make the chaos feel earned. But the tools were all there, and for players who took the time to experiment, there were moments that felt genuinely epic, even if they weren't tied to any meaningful progress. That's why, for all its hype, most people who picked it up never saw the credits roll. And hey, don't forget to download Xmod. Just downloading it once through my link already helps the channel with a small commission and lets me keep bringing even more content your way. Also, drop a comment, hit that like button, and if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate you being here.